Go ahead, Will.
Too bad I destroyed my question.
Well, either way, okay, we can go here first, and then we'll go up to Adam afterwards. Yeah. Thanks.
I didn't know about the baby one.
Hi, Sean Plummer from MSN Canada. A question for Mr. Cronenberg and Mr. Pattinson. My wife and I were actually out for a walk last summer, and we stumbled upon the Cosmopolis set. And I was curious because I'm wondering, why are all these people gathered around Geary Avenue in like this auto body shop? And I asked security, and it was Cosmopolis. And I'm just wondering for you, Mr. Cronenberg, I'm assuming that has never happened before. You've had, well, maybe I'm wrong, but has that ever happened before where you've had these huge crowds watching your sets? And also, so what was that like? And for Mr. Pattinson, I know you've had similar experiences with other productions. Do Canadian crowds compare to the ones who disrupted Remember Me in New York, for instance?
Was it a huge crowd, really? I thought it was just like 3 girls.
I was there.
I mean, they were noisy, but yeah. Well, you know, look, I've worked with some. Jeremy Irons and Jude Law, and so it's not completely out of my experience, I have to say. The premiere that we had in Portugal was pretty amazing. That was unusual because there was a red carpet that was about a mile long, and it was lined with literally 1,000 screaming girls, and they weren't all Portuguese either. Some of them were saying, "Come to Russia, come to Russia." So I knew they weren't Portuguese. So that was kind of like the Beatles, and I had not experienced anything like that before. But other than that, it's not it's not totally out of my experience anyway.
It wasn't a massive difference. I mean, generally, people are pretty nice. It's very confusing as to why people will sit there and watch for a long time. But this one was a little bit more frightening. I definitely know the first scene which we did. I think it was the first time I was outside of the limo, and there was a big crowd lined up, and we were. It seemed like it was a big shot as well. We'd shut down the whole street and everything and set up the shot. And me and Kevin there had got the sunglasses on and everything, like looking really serious, looking like some. I don't know. They were also shooting Men in Black 3 at the same time, which it looked like a similar scene. And then that was in New York, and then Will Smith like jumped out some window, and an explosion goes off, and then everyone's waiting to see what's going to happen. And then we were speaking, barely even opening our mouths. And then that was that. All these people. It was sort of, I don't know. I was so terrified the whole time that it's gonna. People who are waiting around would sort of spread the word that it's the most boring film ever. I was so nervous as soon as we went out when there was anybody watching. Canadian. I mean, they're generally pretty nice.
We're chilled, One thing just to say, the girls who were at Geary Avenue at 3 a.m. were very sweet, and they had read the book. This is quite extraordinary. They made a T-shirt for us that said Nancy Babbage, and had a pistol on it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, and then I wore that, and they went crazy, and they were very excited. But I mean, that's interesting because very early on, we were on the net, and we would see that they had been making these Cosmopolis fan websites, and some of them were incredibly beautiful. Actually, a couple of them were better than the official website.
People in London were, I don't know, I think we were doing the interview together, and then someone was saying about what the tagline was for the movie, and I can't remember exactly what it was now, but I was thinking, like, that's the tagline? And both of us didn't know what it was. And I just found out the other day, it was from one of the fan-made posters, and a whole bunch of journalists thought it was the real one.
Yeah. They would make posters, and they were reading the book, and the comments were commenting on Don DeLillo's book. These are girls who had read like Harry Potter and Twilight, and now they're reading DeLillo, and they still like it, and they still want to see the movie. So I thought, well, there's nothing wrong with that, So really, for me, there's no downside to that aspect of things.
We'll go to Adam and then Maureen.
This is a question. Sorry, Adam Naiman from CinemaScope. It's a question for David, but I guess also to any of the Toronto people in the cast, people familiar with the city. The city of New York is such a major character in the novel. Can you talk about the challenges of representing Toronto as New York in this film, particularly, and if some of those challenges are addressed simply by how and where the movie takes place, the spaces that Eric does and doesn't go.
Yeah. Well, in the book, it's all 47th Street. And so 47th Street is a fairly anonymous street. Somebody said, yeah, there aren't even New York landmarks in the movie. Well, there aren't in the book either. And in fact, a lot of the places, actually almost all of them that Don mentioned in that novel, which he wrote about 10 to 12 years ago, are gone. The Mercantile Library's gone, all of those places. So if we'd actually shot on 47th Street, it still wouldn't have looked like the novel. Also, they use those same parking meter things where you get your ticket, you know. They're exactly the same in New York. Same brand, same make, same color, same stickers, everything. So even that looks like Toronto. Finally, you know, once I had decided that when we were in the limo, we would not see anything except from inside the perspective of the limo, then you're not seeing a lot. You're not looking up. You can't see, you know, how tall the buildings are, that kind of thing. And we were using green screen because our limo was a you know, like a Lego limo. It came apart in 24 pieces so that we could shoot. It was all studio, all green screen through the windows. So you were plugging in New York City, and you would have done that shooting in New York as well, because you couldn't have. I couldn't have shot that in a real limo. It's impossible. We couldn't get the camera, couldn't get the lighting, all of that stuff. So even shooting in New York, it would have looked pretty much like it did, I have to say. And then some of the street stuff that happens when you're at the west end of 47th Street, it looks like Toronto. I mean, it really does. Geary Avenue looks like 47th Street.
Maury, go ahead. And one question, please, Maury.
I know. Is this on? Check. Question for Robert Pattinson. I'm Maury from the Razamoka Show. First, Paul Giamatti, you were looking good.
Thanks a lot, man.
Really good.
And that's your question, Maury.
No,
Thank you.
Was
Was that a question, Maury, or was that just a
Robert
statement?
Pattinson, I just wanted to find out from you, your fans that loved you in Twilight, what do you have to say to them before they go and see this film, which you're really good in?
I don't know. I mean, I think they'll like it. You know, you hope that there's something about what you brought to the part in every job you do, which people like about it. Not just, you know, they don't just like your work as in a totally abstract way. They just say like, I'm a Twilight fan, therefore I like Twilight, even if I don't like it. So hopefully they kind of, and I liked the Twilight scripts in the same way that I like this, and so hopefully they will appreciate it.